Okay. Yeah, 50 years later and the Buffalo Springfield still have it right. Something sure is happening here, and what it is ain't exactly clear. And Retake Our Democracy in its blog and in this show, in our Zoominar series, and in our alert system, tried to keep you informed so you know what's happening and so you can do something about it. Good morning. You're listening to Retake Our Democracy, a 30-minute weekly show that airs at 8:30 a.m. each Saturday morning on KSFR 101.1 FM and streaming from ksfr.org. KSFR is your public radio station, and I am Paul Gibson, the host of Retake Our Democracy. And today I'll be interviewing Brittney Barreras, candidate for the New Mexico State House of Representatives, who is running against former Bernalillo County Board of Supervisor Art De La Cruz. Retake Our Democracy has just endorsed Brittney, making our priority list of 7 candidates now instead of 6. Last week, I interviewed internationally respected climate catastrophe journalist Dar Jamail. Dar's book, The End of Ice, was named one of Smithsonian Magazine's top 10 science books for 2019, and he was a finalist for the Penn E. O. Wilson Literary Science Writing Award in 2020. He's been on our show before, and he also featured a panelist in one of our first Zoominars. And if you missed that show, you'll definitely want to go check it out. The week prior to that, we had the first Republican in the history of Retake Our Democracy on the show. He is the chair of the board of KSFR, Peter Smith, but more importantly, he was the former lieutenant governor, and he was the former state senator and former U.S. House representative from Vermont. He actually lost his election to one Bernie Sanders way back in the day. And Peter has formed, or hasn't formed, but he's part of a group called Republicans for Biden. And so we talked a good deal about his positions and why he had made that decision. And it's just too bad there aren't more Republicans like Peter, because I actually had an intelligent conversation with him. And I think you'd find it refreshing to find that there are some people out there on the other side of the aisle that haven't had their brains cooked by the Trump regime. You can watch all of our past shows by going to retakeourdemocracy.org and hovering over the Actions and Events page menu and click on Retake Conversations. And if you're driving around town today and don't catch all of this interview, you can listen to that as well and watch it, and it will be available by mid-morning. So just depends on when we get back in the farmers market. And while you're at our website, I would strongly encourage you, by the time you hear this, it'll be like 46 days, maybe 45 days until the election. And I don't need to waste any time telling you how important this is and what we're facing. But if we don't want total chaos on November 4th, we're going to have a landslide on November 3rd. And that involves being a pretty well-informed voter, not just in terms of who you're voting for, but how to vote. In some states across the country, your vote will be tallied the next day if you mail it in or you do early voting. In other states, and in some cases it's determined by county, you will, all the votes will be counted that night. That makes a big difference, because if we go to bed at night with Trump leading, but like 25% of the vote not counted, and most of that vote being largely Democratic, you know what the message is going to be on Fox News. You know what Trump is going to tell his people. You know that there will be people in the streets and they'll be armed on November 4th. So if we want to face that chaos, we can be casual about it, look at the polls and draw comfort from Biden's 10% lead nationwide. But the Retake election strategy has all kinds of information for how you can reach out to people in other states, particularly swing states and key Senate states, and you can help them get organized, and you can help them replicate the strategies we have here, where we're virtually certain to not vote for Donald Trump. So while you're at the election site, it's just if you go to retakeourdemocracy.org and click on elections, you'll in the menu bar, you'll see all the strategies that can be conducted in as little as 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, but could have a real impact. The last thing I wanted to mention to you is that we just confirmed that on December 2nd, we will be having a Zoominar. This will be post-election, obviously, and we'll be featuring Senate Leader Peter Wirth and House Speaker Brian Egolf. And so by then, they'll have a much better picture of what their caucuses are going to look like in terms of who won, who lost in the Democratic Party in the general election, maybe some ideas about who's likely to be chairing different committees, but also they'll have a much better idea of, the governor's agenda and what might be possible in the 2021 legislative session. So that's going to be an extremely interesting Zoominar, and I'd encourage all of you to sign up. So let's get started. We've got Brittney here, and it's great to have you with us on the show, Brittney.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here.
Okay, I always like to let our guests introduce themselves. So how about you tell us how you came about running for New Mexico State Legislature?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Brittney Barreras. I was born and raised here in House District 12. It's in the heart of the South Valley. I have a really deep love for my community and for the people that live here. I'm very, very, very proud to be from District 12. My partner Angela and I, we have a daughter. Her name is Isla. It's very important for both of us to instill that same sense of pride that we both have in our daughter. Growing up, my mom, she taught me a lot of great things. But one of the most important things that's always stuck out to me my whole life was that it's very, very important to give back to the community that raises you. And so that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Running for state representative, I'm trying to, do great by my community, but also make my mama proud.
That's great. So you have no real experience in government, while your opponent has served 2 terms as a county commissioner. What about your life's experience and worldview do you think qualifies you for this position?
Well, I think it is exactly that. That I'm just a normal person. I'm a regular person. I'm a hard worker. I know what it's like to work really hard and still barely be able to make ends meet. That's much like my neighbors in this district. So I think that's what makes it so that I have real experience, just being a resident. So I definitely think that I'm the right candidate.
Mm-hmm. And have you debated with Art? Are you going to? Is there going to be any online debates or anything like that?
Nothing yet. I haven't heard of anything. Nothing's been scheduled, but I would certainly be open to it.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So I'd like to ask you about an issue that I've been concerned about for some time, and that is also very important to your constituents. And the county commission, with a key vote from your opponent, I might add, has passed Santolina. It's a massive 22 square mile development. I designed to house up to 90,000 people. If you had been on the county commission, would you have voted for that development? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
I would have absolutely opposed the bill. I think that it's super important that we use those resources in the built neighborhoods and communities here before we send it out to sprawl development. And I will also just add that what Santolina is doing right now in To'Hajiilee, they're basically keeping clean water hostage is absolutely disgusting.
Can you amplify on that? What are they doing?
So the way Santolina sits in an area where To'Hajiilee can build a route basically going to clean water. And in the middle of that route is Santolina, some area that is owned by them. And so basically they're saying you can't have access to this water because you'd have to go through our land unless we get this and this from the city for the development. It really has nothing to do with the people of To'Hajiilee at all, and they're the ones that are suffering.
I see.
On my Facebook page, we actually put up a great article about it, and it's just basically showing you that what these people are having to do just to get clean water in order to clean their clothes or cook with some decent water. It's like I said, it's absolutely disgusting.
That's interesting. And for our listeners, we're recording this on Tuesday morning, and Tuesday at 6:30, it will have transpired by the time you hear this on KSFR. We're having a water panel with some experts on water issues in New Mexico. And so I'd recommend you check it out, Brittney, but because you're not too late. I would recommend our listeners take a look at that Zoominar. That'll be posted on our Retake page at Retake Our Democracy. Just go over to the Actions and Events page and scroll down to Zoominar series, and it'll be at the top of that Zoominar series. And I guarantee you it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So we've can rest assured you would not be pushing sprawl development, and you'd be activist for getting clean water to people who need it. Are there any other issues that may be unique to the South Valley where you and your opponent's positions differ?
I think that it's just important to point out that ART has a long record of supporting developers. I'm running to represent the regular people in District 12 who don't have access to large amounts of money or fancy lobbyists.
Okay. I spent some time looking over your campaign website, and you've laid out some of your positions very clearly. You indicated support for increased access to health care, and I assume you would then support the Health Security Act, a bill that will be before the legislature again in 2021 for like the 20th year in a row. What is your view on the Health Security Act, and why do you think it's important to New Mexicans generally and to your constituents specifically?
The Health Security Act is something that I haven't read yet, but it's definitely on my list. I'm a huge advocate of universal health care. I know that, this is coming from someone who has not always had health care. And I've had some medical scares that basically put me in a position that a lot of people down here are in, and it's that we kind of turn our emergency rooms into primary health care because we just can't afford health care any other way. So I see the people down here needing affordable healthcare, but also lowering the price of prescription drugs. My mom is someone who's not in great health, and she just the cost of her prescriptions puts her in a predicament with other bills every single month. She's a hard worker. She's just like the rest of the people here in District 12. Hard worker, takes care of their family, and still can't afford something as basic, but also a necessity, like healthcare and like prescription drugs.
Okay. Yeah, I think sometimes the old academic expertise is overrated and life experience undervalued. So I appreciate your perspective on that. I want to remind our listeners that it is in times like this, whether it's COVID or the insanity coming out of Washington, D.C., when a station like KSFR is more important than ever. KSFR offers timely news and alerts and a wide range of programming that is largely local, but it's certainly New Mexico focused. And almost all of their moderators or radio hosts like myself are volunteers, but that doesn't mean there aren't expenses, and they're not inexpensive expenses. It's very important that we support that station. And so I always encourage in the middle of the show our listeners to go to ksfr.org and click on the donate button and view a $10 or a $20 donation as your ticket for admission to a limitless amount of entertainment, news, music, and so forth. So please do that as soon as you possibly can. And let's get back to the conversation. We're speaking with Brittney Barreras, and she's running in District 12, South Valley, Albuquerque, against Art de la Cruz for State House of Representatives. And we've been talking a bit about some of her positions on issues, and we're going to get back to that right now. So Retake is developing a platform of what we call transformational bills for the 2021 legislative session. If you may not have known that for 4 years, we've been very involved in the legislature and have developed bill lists each year. But generally, they've been quite large, 40, 50 bills that we were supporting, just about anything we would support. But this time we're going to be going to bills that are transformational in scope and scale. And the Health Security Act is one example. Something that would completely transform the landscape, and something that would specifically address the needs of people who have been underrepresented for generations, really. And so along that line, we had one bill called local choice energy, which basically allows a jurisdiction to vote and say, well, we're done with P&M, or we're done with El Paso Electric, and we want to form our own, essentially form their own utility and purchase energy or produce energy for their community. And in doing so can purchase all renewable. I know that on your website, you supported renewable energy, you made reference to it. So I'm assuming that this would be something you support. How does that sound to you as a legislative initiative?
It sounds like something that I would support. I support all paths that lead to greater renewable energy. I have to say, I think that the fastest and the fairest would be utility companies. I feel like if utility companies are using renewable energy, then almost everybody is going to benefit, and that includes people like me and my neighbors here in District 12. Not just communities that choose renewable energy for themselves.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Another bill that's on our list is to create a state public bank in New Mexico. What is your view on this issue?
I support public banking. I think that state funds could be used to benefit residents and small businesses, like providing super low interest rate loans, and then maybe even student loans. So I definitely support it.
You do? Okay, great, great. The gas and oil industry is obviously very important in New Mexico, both for the revenue it contributes to the state budget and for the jobs it provides. But quite obviously, there's a significant downside derived from the industry's impact on the environment and its contribution to the climate crisis. Do you feel that New Mexico should begin a just transition from gas and oil dependence? And if so, how would you propose to do that?
So absolutely yes, is the answer. Now, the way I like to see it, Paul, is oil and gas is like a three-legged stool. So you've got environmental protection, jobs, and revenue for things like schools and healthcare. So in order for us to transition, we have to do it responsibly. We have to make sure that we're not leaving one of those three pieces behind, because if we do, then we break a leg and our stool falls, everything collapses. So I absolutely yes, but it's very important for us to do it very smart and keep all three of those things in mind, and we can't leave a single one of them behind.
Could you repeat what the three legs of the stool are?
Environmental protection, jobs, and revenue.
Yeah, yeah. I've never heard that analogy before, and it's striking. And as a government, we've had a habit, and I'm not just talking about New Mexico, I'm talking about nationally, of any time there is a transition like this called for, some poor people get left behind, usually communities of color get left behind, and they bear the brunt. So I appreciate that analogy. It's very apt. What are some of the other issues that are most important to you, and why are they important to you?
I think we've covered a lot of the issues today, but I would like to say that I think that it's super important that we see more women and more young people, and also more LGBTQ people in the legislature. So many issues are being debated that affect us, and maybe those voices are not, currently represented. So I think that it's very important for some different kinds of people to be getting out there and running for these positions.
Okay. And what about in relation to education and early childhood education? I know that we're going to undoubtedly be able to vote again on using some of the permanent fund for early childhood. And we're going to be facing, the state is in lawsuit over the Yazzie versus New Mexico for not funding education sufficiently, and particularly in communities of color. How important do you feel education and early childhood education are, and are you inclined to support funding for increased funding for those expenses and those programs?
Absolutely, yes. Early childhood education is extremely important to me. Not only because I see that it's important to my community, but I have a daughter of my own, and I plan on sending her to the same public schools that I probably attended as a kid. So I also know that it's something like 90% of the brain is developed within the first 5 years. Well, kindergarten doesn't start until 5 years old. So as far as early childhood education, it's the earlier the better, and I think that we all need to be on board with that.
Okay. So take a minute or so to for a kind of closing statement, and also to let our audience know where they can find out more information about your campaign and support your campaign.
Definitely. Well, I just want to thank everybody for listening to this. And I really want to thank you, Paul, for having me on. It's, like I said, it's just super important for me to see not just people like me, but just people that are different going for these sorts of positions. I think that it's very, very important. One thing that my campaign really needs is, we don't have the big name developers backing us. I'm running a very grassroots.
I'm guessing De La Cruz does.
That's a fair guess, Paul. So one thing that if you'd like to help us out, it would definitely be donations. You can learn more about me, and also there's a link to give a donation on my website, and it's www.brittneybarreras4hd12.com.
Is that the number 4 or FOR?
It's FOR. It's
okay.
FOR, and I don't spell my first name the way it's traditionally spelled. It's Brittney.
Right.
So it's kind of a long website, but yeah, we can certainly get a link there, and any and all support and contributions that we could get is greatly appreciated.
Do you have like a phone banking thing set up yet for people who can make phone calls into your district?
We're actually working on that right now. The only voter calls that are going out are by me personally. And so we're actually getting a team together for that right now, and the phone banking will start very, very soon.
And so how many hours a day do you spend making phone calls?
It varies, but anywhere between 3 to 4 up to 7. I've been on the phones once for 8 hours. So it really just depends. It kind of depends on how the calls are going that day as well.
Uh-huh.
But
how are they going?
They're going really, really great.
Yeah.
Really, really great. We do live in a time where a lot more people would probably be open to like a texting conversation. But when I get people on the phone, it's going absolutely amazing.
Okay. Well, that's great. It's been really nice talking to you, Brittney. I want to thank you for being on the show, and this recording will be up on our website on Saturday at about 10 or 11, and then I'll send your campaign a link so you can put it up on your website. And I would encourage our listeners to get, we've got 7 campaigns in the Retake Our Democracy priority list. And Brittney's is now one of them. And there's a reason. we didn't just pick, the 7 legislators we most want to see in the legislature. We'd have Javier Martinez on our list. We'd have Jerry Ortiz-Pino on our list. We'd have Antoinette Cedillo Lopez on our list. But these are people who are not going to have a challenge. They're going to win their reelection. They're going to be in the House. They're going to be in the Senate. But they need some other people to help them get the job done. And so it's going to be people like Brittney and people like Naomi Martinez-Parra and Pam Cordova. Those are the people, Harold Pope. We get those people in to the legislature to support those veteran progressives who have been carrying an inordinate amount of weight for years now and have, frankly, not been able to accomplish as much as they would have liked because they ran into what we've come to call Democrats in name only. And I think that would be an apt phrase for anyone who is a candidate or a legislator who prefers the large developers and big business to the small mom and pop business and to the members of the community that are being impacted by large development. And I think we heard from Brittney real clearly about the extent to which, like, for example, Santolina will go to protect their own interests at the expense of low-income communities that need water. And so I would encourage all of you to go to retakeourdemocracy.org and click on the election page. And we have election strategies for the state, and that's where you would find the 7 priority races that we've identified. But we also have a get out the vote strategy that has a national scope. And I think it's something that all of us really need to think about. The get out the vote strategy basically works on the basis of almost like a chain mail. If you remember those from when you were an adolescent, you'd get a letter in the mail and you'd have to send $10 or something to the person at the top of the list. And then that list would just grow and grow and grow in theory. And by the time you got to the top of the list, you'd be getting all these $10 bills coming to you. This was before email, where something like this can go viral. And so the concept we have is that we're asking people to go to we have a script for you and everything all set up. So all you have to do is identify 20, 30. We had the first person that did this, did 150 people in 15 emails. He just kept copying and pasting 10 at a time and sending the same message. But the message lays out very clearly how anyone in any state in the United States should vote. There are links there for the state policies about early voting and the dates and so forth, or mail-in voting in those states, and then also about how those states are going to count the vote. And so we're asking people like you, and don't think somebody else is going to do this, folks. It's got to be you that's going to do it. And so we'd ask you to go there, use that tool, send it out to 20, 30, 40, 100 people, you know. You can do that probably in 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes at the most. And then encourage those people to do the same thing. And then it's the spiral of a chain mail. And you maybe write back to all of them a week later and say, hey, have you forwarded that note to your friends? And I'm doing that now with my family in Ohio and Pennsylvania. And I think we're going to see a dramatic impact from doing that. So I'd encourage all of you to do something between now and November 3rd so that when we wake up on November 4th, it's over. So thank you very much for being with us, Brittney. And we'll be back next week with another great show. And stay active, stay engaged, and stay hopeful. It's the only way we're going to get through this mess. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.